Our Bible word is 1 John 3 verse 2. Beloved, now we are children of God, and it has not yet been revealed what we shall be. But we shall know that when he is revealed, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. So, this is a well-known verse of the first epistle of John. Now, if you look at the context, 1 John was written because there was a crisis in the church. This community was surrounded or influenced by false teachers. And we actually find a reference to them in chapter 2, verses 19. The author writes, "They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would have continued with us. But they went out that they might be made manifest, that none of them were of us." So there was this group who has left this community. And scholars refer to it as the Johannine community. And the Johannine community refers to those writings, the Gospel of John, the 3 epistles of John, and also the book of Revelation. And they were in Asia Minor, in Ephesus, based on early church tradition. So this Christian community in Ephesus, there were these heretics that left them. But they still had contact with their community because they influenced them, or the Corrigans there that gathered. So what did they teach? Well, they denied that Jesus has come in the flesh, for example, and they also denied that Christ is the Son of God. If we go to various passages, like if we go to chapter 2, verses 22, it speaks of those who have left. Who is a liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ, in other words, the Messiah? He is the Antichrist who denies the Father and the Son. Also, if we go to chapter 4, verses 2, by this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is of God. And every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. What we probably encounter here with these heretics is an incipient form of Gnosticism. And they were influenced by something that's known as Docetism. And Docetism is derived from the Greek word dokeo, which means to seem. And there were 2 main versions of Docetism that existed at this time. In the one version, it's the belief that Christ was so divine that he could not have been human. And he could not have taken on physical matter, material form. In other words, he also could not suffer. Jesus only appeared to be a flesh and blood human being. So his body was a phantasm. Because Gnosticism taught that matter is evil. Matter is something that we must escape from. And there was this other lesser divine being, a demiurge, some lesser god, who actually created the physical world. And that is what Gnosticism also, full-blown Gnosticism, taught in the 2nd century. There was this one guy, Marcion, he actually taught that the God of the Old Testament is evil. He is our enemy because he created physical matter and we must escape physical matter. So that was one form of Docetism. Jesus, he could not have been human because, or take on matter, material form, flesh, because matter is evil and the true God cannot take on this evil form. The second form of Docetism is that there was the human Jesus, made of matter, but that the divine Christ was a separate entity. And this entity entered Jesus' baptism, the human Jesus, at his baptism, in the form of a dove. And he empowered him to do miracles or whatever. And then just before the human Jesus died, this Christ left the human Jesus. So it was not really the Christ, this divine Christ, who suffered and died on the cross. And now, of course, the author here, he writes, this is nonsense. Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. If you go there to chapter 5 verses 6, he writes there, he did not just come with water, but with water and blood. Also in the beginning, the author writes there, that which was from the beginning, what we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked upon, and our hands have handled or touched. In other words, the author emphasizes that Jesus Christ, he was human. He has come in the flesh. These teachings of these false prophets, he also calls them, these antichrists, beware of this, because this is not the truth. Who these false teachers were, we do not know, but they claimed to be more wise or have deeper insight, etc., and that they were inspired by the Spirit. For example, if you go read there, chapter 4, verses 1. And, of course, the author counters this. So who is this author who wrote this epistle? Of course, most would say this was the Apostle John, but scholars and theologians don't agree with that, and they associate this epistle with a figure called John the Elder, who was mentioned by many of the Apostolic and Church Fathers of the time. And this John the Elder, he was a main figure in Asia Minor towards the end of the 1st century. And scholars say he is also responsible for all the epistles of John and also the Gospel of John. And he was like a spiritual teacher, and the whole school, the Johannine school, or the Johannine community, was formed around him. So he was a principal figure in Ephesus, here towards the 90s AD. And this was also the time when this epistle was written. So our textual unit is chapter 2 verses 28 to chapter 3 verse 3. And this is where John the Elder focuses on the hope, the future hope of God's children. Just before our textual unit, he wrote about these antichrists, those who bring this false message or this false teaching, and also encourages them, remain in this, abide in this, stay true to what you've received. And now his focus shifts. From verse 28, as it says there, and now little children. In other words, he's now introducing a kind of a different section. And now the focus is on their hope, their future hope. It's about positive encouragement. We've now dealt with the heretics. Now let's look with the positive encouragement, our hope in the return of Christ. So he says, and now little children, abide in him, that when he appears, we may have confidence and not be ashamed before him at his coming. So in other words, let's remain true to this so that we can have confidence. We will not be put to shame. This word confidence refers to, for example, if you're in the presence of a king or a queen, you have the freedom to speak. You don't have to be ashamed, etc. So it refers to that kind of confidence. And also it refers to Jesus' coming. This Greek word is parousia, and theologians also use this word parousia to refer to the coming of Christ, the parousia of Christ. In the ancient world, parousia referred to the coming of an emperor to a city. It was a big event, a massive event. It was a once-in-a-lifetime event. So it was something magnificent. So that is what the author likens the coming of Christ. It's the parousia. It's a once-of-a-lifetime event. It's something spectacular, something to look forward to. Let's go to chapter 3, verses 1. It says, behold what manner of love the Father hath bestowed on us, that we should be called children of God. Remember, in the ancient world, the father only adopted a child formally, and because he would, by giving the child a name, and only then the child will formally become part of the family. Fathers could just put their children out on the streets, or the exposure of infants, leave them there to die, etc. That's the kind of comparison that the author uses here. It says that we should be called children of God. In other words, God has accepted us. He has formally called us. We are His children. We are part of His family. And that's the wonderful assurance that we have. Therefore the world does not know us, he continues, because it did not know Him. In other words, God. Now specifically the author looks to the future. Beloved, now we are children of God, and it has not yet been revealed what we shall be. But we know that when He is revealed, we shall be like Him, for we shall see Him as He is. So what wonderful encouragement here he gives. Jesus now, as the Logos, was the Word of God, He became flesh. In other words, to a degree, what was hidden was revealed through the earthly life of Jesus. Now again He is invisible. We cannot see Him. Although He is present in the church, also through the Spirit, we cannot see Him. But a time will come again when He will become visible. A time again He will become manifest. So that is what that word also means there, revealed. But when He is revealed, and more significantly, we shall be like Him. In other words, we will share in the glory of Christ, the nature of Christ, His glorious nature. We shall share in it. We shall be like Him, for we shall see Him as He is. So, the author wants to encourage these Christians, this positive hope. We've dealt with the heretics. Look at the glorious future that awaits for you when Christ is made to appear. If you remain faithful to your calling, if you remain faithful to what you have received, and you are not deceived by these antichrists and false teachers. But now also importantly, this Christian doctrine, this hope in the return of Christ, it also has ethical implications. Christian doctrine always has ethical implications. This is what we believe about God, about Jesus the Son, etc. But now it must also influence our conduct and behavior. And now that's what we encounter verse 3. And everyone who has this hope in Him purifies himself just as He is pure. In other words, we get rid of sin. Because also in this epistle, it often refers to sin. And now we must get rid of sin. So this is the positive message, this encouragement that John the Elder brings to these Christians who are facing these false teachings that Jesus did not come in the flesh, that He's not really the Christ, etc. He is. And we hope for His return. And when He appears, in other words, when He's made visible, we will become like Him. So let our conduct also become proper conduct, Christian conduct. Let us purify ourselves from sin.